know what you guys are thinking. All this talk about change is very well, but practically, not theoretically, practically, how does it happen? We've already established the basic parameters by which change should not happen. So what sort of things are we looking for instead? I think at this point the best way forward is to talk about real life examples, not theories. It's time for facts. Naturally, the person I can talk about best and with best first-hand knowledge is, well, me. So I'll just chat to you guys about some ways in which I've personally changed in the last few years. The single biggest one way was, of course, going vegan. I want to start with this one because it's the most recent change that I've incorporated into my life, but also the one that has so far given me the most immediate and tangible results. To give you a bit of a background, prior to switching to a vegan diet, I had been a vegetarian/pescatarian for about 15 years. I have always been the quintessential animal lover, and I mean this almost to an extreme. I wouldn't even kill like a spider or a fly. But for some frankly crazy reason, eating a fish every now and then was justified somehow in my world. For the longest time, I was myself a victim of what is now widely known as speciesism. Now, speciesism is a form of discrimination based on membership to a certain species. I was protecting the spider nesting in my bathroom, but for some frankly absurd reason, it was somehow okay to be contributing to the death and suffering of trillions of fish and other animals every year. Another term for speciesism and for all this might be cognitive dissonance. I've put a definition for this in the About section. Similarly, as I was a vegetarian, I lived under the blissfully ignorant assumption that because I wasn't directly eating the animals anymore, that by consuming dairy products and free-range eggs, but not meat, I wasn't actually killing any of my favorite animals. It's so good to dream and live in a parallel reality, isn't it? Of course, I was so incredibly wrong. For years and years and years, I allowed the dairy and egg industry to convince me that the cows producing the milk I was drinking and the hens producing the eggs I was eating lived happy, carefree lives and died serenely of old age. Little did I know that even in organic farms, these animals were constantly abused, lived in filthy, overcrowded spaces. How could I have believed that you could be a vegetarian and live cruelty-free? For the longest time, I had believed that in order to survive, I needed to get at least some animal protein in my system. I wasn't going to do meat, but surely fish seemed like a good compromise. How can anyone compromise, though, at the expense of trillions of other living beings? You can't. Not if you know that the medical advice that you've been given for the longest time is simply false and corrupt. Not if you find out that big corporations don't want you to know any better. Not if you find out that a strictly plant-based diet, the diet that so much scientific research has proven to be the most appropriate for us, is the one that not only will allow you to survive, but also will allow you to thrive and explore your physical capabilities the most. Well, let's just say that even if I got there 15 years late, I am very glad to have gotten there eventually. I'm glad my eyes were open finally, and I can live now knowing that not only I am doing the best I can for my health and for the planet, because of course the environmental gains of being plant-based are huge too, but also for the billions of animals out there who are living in slavery and filth and who do not even know one day of love in their miserable lifetime. I am glad that I am no longer contributing to their suffering. And I am also glad that my body is the healthiest it's ever been. And if you don't believe me, just try it out for yourself. If you need help, advice, motivation, I'm here for you. Comment on my videos, DM me on Instagram, do whatever you like. I have your back. Wider lifestyle changes. Changing your diet to one that makes you and the world around you happy and healthy is great. But of course, it isn't all. While food is a very important part of my life, I am delighted to admit that not everything in my world revolves around it. I know that that could be debatable, but just go with me for now. The last few years have seen change happen in a variety of areas of my life. One of those areas is shopping, which covers anything from clothing to bric-a-brac to Christmas presents and whatnot. Let's take clothes as an example. Just like most people, I used to enjoy going out for a walk, popping into a shop, seeing this or that top and coming home with it. I never spent extortionate amounts for stuff like this, and luckily I never really cared about owning a Louis Vuitton bag, for example. But I did used to enjoy spending my money on clothes and other, let's call them materialistic things. I was essentially spending money as a hobby, not because I needed something, but because I was out, the thing was in front of me, I had money to buy it. Done. Naturally, I used to have a lot of clothing items. A lot of which, because I didn't really need them, or even in some cases like them that much, just ended up cluttering my wardrobes and my space. And often without me even wearing them that much, if at all. Now, as the new me, before I buy anything really, I have two rules. Number one, I need to make sure that I will be using it. Number two, when an item comes into my house, of which item I have more than one, for instance a t-shirt, then another item, so a t-shirt, needs to leave my house. And by leaving the house, I don't mean chucking it away. I mean donating it to a charity or passing it on to a friend, a relative, whomever. As an ethical vegan, I've also stopped buying anything that comes from animal byproducts. Wool, leather, fur, obviously, things that are tested on animals. And in general, I try to buy from companies that have good work ethics, both towards the non-human animal world and towards the human employees. Now, this is something I know I can improve for sure, and therefore I always welcome suggestions from you guys of any smaller scale, cruelty-free, low-waste, environmentally friendly companies out there. Bearing in mind that I really don't spend much of my regular day out shopping for the aforementioned reasons, it's still good to know where to go when the need of welcoming new stuff into my life arises. This brings me to the last but definitely not least thing I want to mention, which is traveling. I have always loved traveling and exploring new places, and if it weren't for the fact that I know for a fact that planes do pollute quite a bit, I would probably travel even more than I do now. People often ask me, how do you even have the money to travel? Well, guess how much I save by not bringing crap I don't need into my life. And you can travel way more cheaply than you probably think. But for that sort of advice, check out my travel video coming out next week. And if you have specific requests for new videos, feel free to comment below or message me on Instagram. For right now, thanks guys for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye!